Leaders, we need you. We need your help. Please help us.
Your hand in my hand. Let's take a stand and we'll show the world what we believe in.
I can proudly say that the Filipino spirit is waterproof. Hold us in prayer and help us make my home country safer against the effects of climate change.
As an African, it is difficult to think as an American is thinking. We have two thinking which is different.
Usually United Methodist Church is an open door, open hearts, open minds, but sometimes some people are left out.
When I get back from General Conference, fortunately I will still be a Methodist. Happily, I think we're making steps in the right direction.
Our heart is to be a people that remain united for the sake of the mission.
What good news is there from the United Methodist Church? What would it mean if we came to Portland with United We Help Millions and left a divided church? What witness would we be bearing? But we're not going to leave divided, because God is not finished with us yet.
Our game plan is focused on ensuring that the United Methodist Church is a vibrant church that is biblically committed, Christ-centered, evangelistically functional, Holy Spirit empowered, and vision-driven.
To do more than we can ask or imagine.
We have learned that when congregations engage in the 4 areas of focus, they become healthier, more effective, and more vital in the mission of making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world.
I am a leader who serves in ministry because of the support I have received from the United Methodist Church and people just like you.
Seeing that connection at work, seeing the videos on the ministry that we're doing all over the world, so many more things have inspired me and encouraged me to go back to my local church and be the hands and feet of Jesus there.
God is able, more than able.
I want to be a part of a church that is willing to go, learn, mercy.
Go out. Yes, church, we are called to go out. Therefore, go.
Head of your delegation. And we have our delegation standing here, -1, who is AWOL. Each of us got a chance to speak to you very briefly. I said, sum up your experience in 1 or 2 words. So my word is General Conference is diverse.
General Conference is passionate.
General Conference is relationships.
General Conference is amazing.
We are hopeful, but...
General Conference was a time of embracing vulnerability.
Unbelievably, General Conference is necessary.
Unity is complex.
Is the place trust and obey.
General Conference is amazing and a great honor to serve.
General Conference was all of those things and more, and we decided to start with the video because it gave you a little bit of a flavor of a lot of different parts of the conference. One of the things we thought we should do as a delegation is to report back to you on the petitions that were sent from our conference. This does not include petitions that came from individuals in our conference, of whom I'm aware of several, and I didn't try to include all of those because I knew I'd miss some. But there were 6 petitions that were voted on last year as legislation here that went to General Conference as petitions from our conference. And Greg, if you've got the slides, now is the time. 3 of those petitions had to do with fossil fuels and divestment. And if you notice that slide, we didn't do very well on those. The first one was rejected in favor of another petition, but that petition didn't go anywhere either. And so on fossil fuels overall, the only thing that came to the plenary floor was one petition to insert something about screening out fossil fuels in the paragraph in the discipline that talks about what we will not invest in. So we didn't do well on fossil fuels. There were 2 petitions that related to divestment from the occupation of Palestine. Next slide. Those also didn't go anywhere. The one that came closest was the one to establish a screen to remove investments in illegal settlements without reference to any particular place. And there are a couple of other places in the world where that might apply if we had investments there. That was amended by the committee, which really watered it down, but then it didn't get acted on in a plenary, so that one died too. There was one more petition, and this one I almost forgot about until we started looking for this. This was the petition that Mark brought last year to change the Board of Ordained Ministry to the Board of Ministry. Okay. And that one passed. But if any of you deal with secular legislatures, you may be familiar with the term gut and stuff. That's what happened. The important part of what was left after they deleted and substituted was no district superintendent or extended cabinet member shall be the chairperson of the Board of Ordained Ministry. Now, if you think that sounds nothing like what was submitted from here, you're right. But that one passed. So all in all, the legislation we submitted did not do really well. As you know, there were some huge issues at annual conference, at general conference, that really took most of the energy of the conference. And Donna's going to talk a little bit about where we ended up on that and where we're going forward. We hope going forward, not backward.
Thank you, Jan. So if you were watching the feed or if you were at the convention center volunteering, you know that the first 2 days of General Conference, we spent debating how we were going to debate. And that was because the General Conference Commission had brought a suggested process, a new rule number 44, which would have allowed for some conversation in small groups related to questions around human sexuality, would have removed those from the legislative process until after that small group discernment kind of conversation could happen. The body was very, very fearful of that. It was evident that we had some difficulty trusting one another, and so ultimately Rule 44 was voted down. And its failure then put us back into the same patterns and the same entrenchments related to inclusivity issues for our church. So there was an extremely contentious legislative committee, one of the Church and Society committees that dealt with these. It was evident that we were headed for the same kind of divisive experience on the plenary floor. And so the body asked the Council of Bishops to work on this matter and bring us a recommendation for a way to move forward related to conversation and the petitions that were before us around human sexuality, and particularly related to inclusivity in the church. So the Council of Bishops did their work, and they came back and they suggested that all of such legislation on LGBTQ-related issues would be sent to a special commission on human sexuality. What this means is that all proposed legislation at this General Conference on those topics basically died, and that our polity remains the same as it was in 2012 related to human sexuality. So just a bit about this special commission. The Council of Bishops brought this recommendation, which the body did eventually approve, to have the council name a special commission, including people from every region of the church and representatives from different perspectives on this issue, and that their task will be to develop a complete examination and possible revisions for every paragraph in the Book of Discipline dealing with or regarding human sexuality. And in part, this is what the recommendation from the bishops said. We continue to hear from many people on the debate over sexuality that our current discipline contains language which is contradictory, unnecessarily hurtful, and inadequate for the variety of local, regional, and global contexts. So if the commission finishes its work in time, there is a possibility that the council could call a 2 or 3 day special general conference before 2020. And the work of that conference would be to receive the recommendations from this special commission. I want to quote one other little piece of the recommendation which came from the Council of Bishops. They said, "We will continue to explore options to help the church live in grace with one another, including ways to avoid further complaints, trials, and harm while we uphold the discipline."
So that's where we are. I think it's not where most of us would have liked us to be at this time, but it's where we are. General Conference does what they do. It does matter to us, but we all need to also keep in mind that what really matters is the ministry that we do in our churches, on our campuses, in our communities, and one way or another, all this other stuff will someday sort itself out. A lot of us are fearful of how many people will leave the church in frustration or in pain before that happens. So in addition to going ahead and doing our ministry, we need to pray a lot for this commission, for our bishops, for the whole church, that we might learn to talk to each other and that we might learn to give each other permission to do the ministry that we need to do in our own context. Bishop Stanofsky spoke in one of our morning meetings about unity versus unanimity and about the need to hold some things more loosely. And I think that's something that all of us on all sides of the issues needs to learn. I want to end with a couple of thank yous. I want to thank the delegation. Most of the time, except for Donna and me, they spent sitting in the bleachers. Well, they had actual kind of chairs with backs, but they were very faithful in reporting on anything that happened that seemed to be of significance, and most of them got a little bit of time to be on the floor. I have to say thank you to David, who sat in on the whole budget discussion when my brain was totally fried. But I just want to thank the delegation, because it takes a lot of patience to be a reserve delegate at General Conference. So thanks, guys. And one other very special thank you to a person from our own conference who made a huge contribution to General Conference, and that's Laura. As a head of the worship was phenomenal. She had us singing in so many different languages, I couldn't believe it. The participants in the liturgy spanned a broad segment of the church, and it was joyful, and it was beautiful, and thank you. Okay.
I just want to add one more thank you, and that is to echo what Bishop Hagia has already expressed about the hospitality that you all provided and the way in which you showed the world what it means to live as Christians who truly are living out an ethic of hospitality and care. Because I happen to be serving the First Church in Portland, there were a lot of events that happened at our church as well. And I cannot tell you the number of people from around the world, bishops, delegates, reserve delegates, and visitors who sought me out on the floor of General Conference to say thank you. And they said that not only to First Church Portland, but to all of you and to all who provided that extraordinary welcome. Thank you.
Follows naturally. We want to invite Dr. Bill Hayden to come up and to give his own thank yous as we thank him also. Now, there's going to be multiple thank yous going on. At the awards banquet, we're also going to be thanking the host committee, but we wanted to give plenary time to Bill to organize and thank everyone. So come on up, Bill.
I understand you've already heard a fair amount about what a wonderful job we did with the hospitality at General Conference. So I want to be brief and relatively focused this afternoon. You've seen the number on the screen several times. The number, approximately 700 individuals who wound up serving as volunteers in one aspect or another of our work. What I would like to just note to you is that not only did Oregon-Idaho contribute very generously in terms of numbers of volunteers, but so did PNW and Alaska, Cal Pac, Cal Nevada, Desert Southwest, the, what do we call the sky?
Mountain Sky.
Mountain Sky Conference, excuse me. But we had volunteers from all over the world who wound up working with us and helping us with General Conference. And I would say to you that from the time the first bishop or Central Conference delegate arrived at PDX until the last guest departed from the DoubleTree on May the 22nd, our green-vested ambassadors showed the world what it means to be a member of God's family in Portland. Recently, which is to say on June the 6th, 26 of the 30-plus individuals who provided the leadership of that 700-person group came together in Portland to review and evaluate our work and our experience. I would like to ask those of you from that gathering who are here today to stand and be recognized for their wonderful and inspiring leadership. I know a bunch of you are in the room. Yes, back here, please. There we go. All right. Yes. I could list all 26, but I want to lift up the names of Steve Sprecher, who was my principal deputy. Steve and his wife are in San Francisco taking care of grandchildren at this moment, and so he could not be here today. Tim Overton Harris is over here. Ailey Lowry, I believe, is here. Brett Strovel, Mary Foote over here, Lowell Greathouse, Becky DeLury. The dedication and commitment that they showed to our work help ensure our success, and I am immensely grateful to them. I would have to say to you that more than 5 years ago, nearly 6, when Bishop Hoshibata asked me if I would chair this group. I began by saying I have no idea what you're talking about. So I was sent to Tampa in 2012 to observe. And I will also tell you that when I stood up here last June and talked about now it's time to become a volunteer, we were talking about hope and optimism earlier, I believe. I was both. I was hopeful and I was optimistic, but you could not know that, number one, people would sign up to be volunteers, and number two, they would actually come and do the work. But in fact, they did, and they came in amazing numbers. And for those of you who worked at the airport, which was a very special thing, because that set the tone for everything we did. Countless people came forward and said to be greeted coming out of the security area by someone in a green vest who wanted to guide you all the way down to the MAX, having gotten your luggage, and if necessary, getting you to your hotel. It made an indelible impression on everybody that we encountered. So I want to share some words with you that came to me from a colleague from Franklin, Tennessee. He is the senior pastor of the largest church in that part of Nashville. He said this to me on June the 7th. I want to express to you and your hospitality team my sincere thanks for the incredible job you did in hosting GC 2016. The volunteers were simply amazing in offering care, concern, help, and support to both delegates and guests to Portland. Each of you should be very proud of all that you did to make our time with you enjoyable. Please give my thanks to all who helped in any way for a job well done. And that would be my comment to all of you who helped us make this all possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. There'll be more tonight.
I'd invite Warren to make his way to the podium so that we can start looking at legislation.
Hi. So we have some work to do, and I'm going to ask we dispense with the term developer, and we use the term shepherd. The shepherds that legislation to you. I'm going to ask the shepherds, Norm, Kathleen, Josh, Kevin, Colina, Larry, to come forward to be ready, and so we don't have a lot of time in between.
Now,
And
while they're making their way up, we do have a card.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go
Sure.
ahead.
So come up to microphone 4 or 5, either one, and we'll get our shepherds set.
Patty Myers, my charge conference is Trinity Toledo. In all of the thank yous and all the people who work behind the scenes, you all, I think all of us in the conference need especially to thank Greg Nelson, our amazing, that's an overplayed word usually, but this really does apply. He worked so hard to communicate with everybody in this annual conference what was happening every single day. And as one who was working with Greg and hundreds of other people in the catacombs of the convention center to do that communicating, we really do owe him a lot. And I would think we would be remiss if we didn't recognize him.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. And there are so many of you also who will be unnamed that put in as much work as any of us. So I know the tendency is want to thank everybody individually, but as soon as we start mentioning names, we'll leave out somebody. So just congratulate everyone because of the tremendous amount of work that they did, okay? So we'll turn it over to Norm first. Norm. Yeah.
Thank you, Bishop. Let me direct your attention to page 21 in the legislative things, action request AR5. While you're turning there, I'd like to say that I resemble the remark that Warren said earlier about a person born during the Roosevelt administration. However, I wish to point out it was Franklin, not Teddy. Anyway, moving on. This is Action Request 5. The title is Episcopal Election at Jurisdictional Conference. And I present this for your approval at this conference. I move that you approve this Action Request AR5 at this conference.
Thank you. All right, it is properly before you. Is there any discussion on this? Yes, number 6.
Colin Corbett, Creator Lake Young Adult. So obviously the last line of this is what the whole point is. But I'm curious, does the language from the rest of it come from anywhere in particular, or is it just stuff that the drafters thought was important?
It's my understanding it's just information that they felt that was important. Karen, do you have anything? I can't see who's back here.
Karen Nelson, Clear Lake, member of Methodist Federation for Social Action and Western Methodist Justice Movement, which is the group that put together this petition and has submitted it to each of our annual conferences in the Western jurisdiction. This list comes from a group of Methodist Federation for Social Action folks who worked on this list in 2012, and then again in 2016 reaffirmed the list of the kind of qualities that we would look for in an Episcopal leader. And our Western jurisdiction group added the last line to it.
Helpful? All right. Any other discussion or questions? Looks like you're ready to approve it. Everybody ready? All right. If you would approve this, would you please raise your hand? Thank you. Same sign if you disapprove. We have a few. Okay. Thank you. Noted. Thank you, Norm.
Hello. Please find page 23 in your legislative packet, A Grand Alliance to Save Our People's Postal Service. This is Action Request AR06. Again, that's page 23.
Go ahead and move.
I move the adoption of a Grand Alliance to Save Our People's Postal Service, AR06.
Properly before us. Any questions or discussion? Looks like ready to vote. All right. If you would approve this, would you raise your hand? Thank you. Any opposed? Same sign. Noted. Those that are opposed. Okay. Thank you.
Please find page number 25 in your packet. It's Community-Based Corrections is the name of the standing resolution. I move the adoption of Community-Based Corrections, SR 6.
All right. It is before you. Is there any anybody wish to speak to this? I think you're ready to move. All right. If you would approve this, raise your hand. Thank you. Opposed, same sign. All right. It is carried. Thank you, Josh.
Please find page 27 in your legislative packet. This is End Gun Violence Through Education and Other Efforts is the name of the standing resolution. I move the adoption of Standing Resolution 7, End Gun Violence Through Education and Other Efforts.
All right. It's properly before us. Anyone wish to speak to this? I think you're ready.
All right, if you would approve this, please raise your hand. Thank you. Opposed, same sign. Few in the back. Okay, this is passed. Thank you.
Please turn to page 31, Standing Resolution SR08, to oppose the Trans-Pacific Partnership Free Trade Agreement. I move that we adopt the oppose the Trans-Pacific Partnership Free Trade Agreement.
All right, it is properly before us. Anyone wish to speak to this? Okay. Either you're really tired or you're in consensus. All right, let's take the vote. If you would approve, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Same sign. Have a few of those. Thank you. This is passed.
And please find on page 33, Standing Resolution number 8, supporting the discussion of homeless persons' rights. Oh, that's number 8, it should be, I think. Number 9, I'm sorry, right. Number 9, page 33, support discussion of homeless persons' rights. I move the acceptance of this standing resolution.
All right. Properly before us, does anyone wish to discuss or question? Looks like everybody's ready. All right, if you would approve this, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Same sign. It is passed.
Please find page 35 in your legislative packet. The title is Middle East Conflicts, the number Standing Resolution 10. I move the adoption of Standing Resolution 10, titled Middle East Conflicts.
It is before us. Anyone wish to speak to it? Okay. If you would approve, please raise your hand. Thank you. If you disapprove, please, same sign. Few of you do. Okay. It is approved.
Please turn to, excuse me, I'm sorry. Josh, it's your turn.
Please turn to page 37. It's Standing Resolution 11, bring U.S. government missile strikes under oversight. I move the adoption of SR 11, bring U.S. government missile strikes under oversight.
Okay, it is properly before us. Is there any debate or discussion? All right, looks like you're ready. If you would approve, please raise your hand. Thank you. Disapprove, same sign. Okay, it's clearly one, but we have a number of those. So noted. Yes, point of order? Number 4.
I'm not too sure it's a point of order, just that if you've downloaded the bundle off the internet, the page numbering is completely different. So I think maybe that's why some people are not following this. There are 2 different types of page numbers.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I did download it, and that's the way it came out, right off the internet, but I don't know. It might be that we have different programs or something, I don't know.
Maybe it's a glitch, Andy. We got confirmation that they downloaded it and it's right, so
yeah.
We'll check with your...
When did you download it? Would it have been before Legislative Assembly, possibly, or? Yeah.
Warren, may I speak to this?
Yes,
This is
please.
Dan Benson. The issue is he's looking at it on his tablet, on his machine, and so at the bottom of the page, it says Legislative page 39, but within the packet of all the documents, I'm on page 75 of the whole electronic bundle. If you got the 100-page document as a whole, one whole electronic document. So that's where some of the confusion is coming from.
So for everyone who is trying to follow along, please find the legislative page number down on the bottom right-hand corner, but thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
I didn't get the other pages numbered, the other numbering system, so thank you.
Thanks, Andy. And Andy is a member of the legislative body, so, yeah, okay.
We voted. We're on to the next one. All right. Please turn to page 39, Standing Resolution 12, Seeking Peace and Justice in the Holy Land. I move the adoption of Standing Resolution 12, Seeking Peace and Justice in the Holy Land.
Okay, properly before us. Is there any discussion you wish to have on this? No? I think you're ready to vote. All right, if you would approve, please raise your hand. Thank you. If you will not, same sign. We have a few. Thank you. It is approved.
The following three ARs, action requests, come from, the first two are from the Wednesday night meeting of late legislation. They've been published after the action of the Legislative Assembly on Wednesday night. So they were published in the Thursday material, and there are a small number of copies back at that desk. But we will be going through those in just a minute. After AR 7 and AR 9, we will discuss AR 2, which was taken off the consent calendar. So that's what we're looking at doing next. These require a majority vote and will be moved now at this time. AR 7, we'll ask Mary Foote.
I recommend the adoption of AR 7, revision to the current clergy church parsonage form.
You want to move the adoption.
I move the adoption of the revision to the current clergy church parsonage form, AR 7. Do we have a page? Okay, that's good.
There's no page.
Oh, excellent.
And this is a late-breaking one, so you might have some confusion. Sure, come to microphone 3. This was just handled this week, so
Right.
we need to give you a little bit more time. I understand that we can put it on the board, too.
Nadine Wiles, Crater Lake District Director of Lay Servant Ministry. Sometimes I forget the whole title. I believe that we have a conference rule or something that says that the body has to be in possession of this 24 hours in advance of voting. And I realized that Warren announced yesterday that there was business to come before that was going to be published online and emailed, and there are some of us who don't have access to that when we're at annual conference. I picked up a copy over at the conference office table. I know they're limited, but I would like to bring that rule into play because not everybody here who is a voting member has even had a chance. I picked it up this afternoon. I haven't even had a chance to read them. So I think it's highly unfair, and I think we need to stick to that rule.
Warren, would you like to respond?
This would be, of course, the bishop's call. What we have tried to do is actually open up the process in a way by allowing for these late items, and so it's kind of a challenge. And Greg did extra work as he always does, and he's a gift. And he had published that. I made that announcement so that people would be able to look, and we said that there would be some copies available. So I mean, I believe that we actually have met the rule. As to whether or not that is fair enough, that's going to be up to the bishop and you. I don't know.
Right, and so I think by the book, we have fulfilled the 24-hour, but we'll go by the body's wishes. If the body feels like they need more time, that's certainly acceptable. So you want to speak to my response, or go
Bishop,
ahead?
I would just wonder if we could have a show of hands of how many people have not seen these documents.
Well, the other issue would be the fact that we would just vote whether to delay this or not. That will give everybody a chance to voice their opinion about whether they've seen it or not.
Yeah, but just, you know, if we could
It's
have an
this-
idea of how many people
Well,
actually had that. If
okay.
you don't want to do that, that's fine.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to get to that question that you just raised through my initial response, which is, does the body wish to delay this till tomorrow and then be ready to vote on it? Okay, so that's the question before you. Do you want us to hold on these last breaking ones, or do you wish to move ahead with them? All right? Does everybody understand the question? All right. Those that wish to wait, please raise your hand. Okay. Those that are wanting to move ahead, raise your hand. It's very close. Okay. Well, I think, yes, or is anybody had any point of order questions? Let's do it one more time. One more time. We'll have you stand. Those that wish to delay, please stand. Thank you. Those that would like to move forward today and feel adequate time, please stand.
I'm
It's really
standing
hard.
but not voting.
Yeah, I hear you.
just
I hear you.
voting. I'm not voting.
Well, I think we don't want to do a division of the House, but I think we can wait. I think that's the prudent thing to do. We will hold this. Warren, what would be the best way for folks to get a hold of this material and be
I think Greg can answer that better than I can, maybe.
All right.
Because there's only a limited number of written copies. That is part of actually our rules. So go ahead, Greg.
Go ahead, Greg. 6.
Greg Nelson, Director of Communications. Two easy ways to get it electronically. One, in yesterday, everyone who's a registered member of conference got an email that said AC Info, and there's a link in that to a PDF unit with the 4. The second place, if you want to web browse, is go to umoi.org/legislation, and all the legislation there, and you'll scroll down and see a yellow highlighted bar that says late legislation items that has the 4 that have been forwarded to the body. So those are the 2 electronic places that are available, and I don't know if somebody in the office wants to tell me how many are left over there. It looks like I see about 10 in his hand, so.
Oh, okay. We still have some
More
written-
than that. So there's a few over there. So those are available. We could show it on the screen. Some of them are short, and that would be easy. Others are longer. I think that would not necessarily use the body's time well. This reminder for people to go look at it tonight would move us forward, in my opinion, Bishop.
Very good. And if you don't have electronic access, go grab a copy. I think we do have 10 or 12 more over there. So feel free to do that.
So
Go ahead.
Bishop, yeah, if, with your permission, I would say then that the only thing that we have to discuss at this time, because the others have the same problem, is the AR2, which is the piece that was pulled off the consent calendar.
All right.
And that is on legislative page 5, down in the right-hand corner. And I will move that at this time. I move the rule change, Legislative Assembly membership, CCAR02.
Yes. Number 3. Our secretary pointed out that Mary did make a motion, but deferring with our parliamentarian, it can be delayed pending the action that we just took. So I don't think we have to go back to put that on the table. I think we're just holding that in abeyance until we all get up to speed on that. Number 3.
Mary Frances Gunn, Astoria First United Methodist Church, and former legislative committee person. In keeping with I talked with Peg Losfold and some of the people who were behind this legislation, and they're trying, my feeling is that they're trying to quantify what the practice has been. My concern was that we'd be with a 4-year, what am I trying to say? Classes or whatever, that we would be changing membership every 4 years. So I have a motion to add after line 2 on page 6, after the statement that if the legislative member is unable to attend ... that we add the statement, no more than 1/2 of the membership of the Legislative Assembly shall be changed every 2 years in order to help promote the stability of the Assembly.
Is there a second? All right, it's been seconded. Would you like to speak to that?
Having worked on the legislative process and having helped sort of birth the Legislative Assembly, my concern is that we do need that stability and not have to retrain the Assembly on the policies, on the procedures from year to year. And that with a 2-year staggered, we would have that that more stability to the membership.
Okay, it is before us. Any other discussion? Yes, number 3 again.
I would argue against this. Norm Dyer, jurisdictional board member. Anyway, I would argue against this. There is very much options within what's there. It says one will serve for 4 years with a maximum of 8. It doesn't say you have to leave after 4. The other thing is, as we're getting hung up on thou shalt do this, thou shalt do that, with several things in this thing, I think putting in more of those is really wrong. So I am in favor of leaving the standing resolution or the action request as it is.
Okay, it's 1 in favor and 1 against this particular motion. Anybody else wish to speak? Yes, number 6.
Jan Nelson, General Conference Delegate. I think I get what Mary Frances is trying to do, and I think it's a good idea. I'm afraid that the exact language she proposed would lead to a lot of confusion if those terms weren't expiring. Then what do we do? If not enough people were going, or if too many people's terms expired, then what? So I think maybe it would be better to write some kind of language about having classes or an initial starting, this many people would rotate off in such and such a year as a starting point for that. But I don't think this particular amendment's going to get us where we need to be. On the other hand, we could just trust the process that people always will come and go, and it'll never happen all at once.
Okay. All right, that's 2 speeches against the amendment, 1 for. Is there anybody who wishes to speak? Yeah, number 6.
Colin Corbett, Greater Lake Young Adult. One problem with the amendment, it specifies that you can't have more than half turnover in a 2-year period. I mean, what happens if a bunch of people leave or their terms expires and they don't want to come? That could potentially put us in some awful positions if we need to keep half but don't have half that even want to return. Second, I think that I believe that the current system sort of already has classes of people, and that the members of the legislative committee have been set on for 4-year terms. And so if we already have classes going and this rule forces us to continue by that rule, then that theoretically would continue the classes sort of in perpetuity. And we would not need to, we don't need to write in the classes if it sort of already is embedded in the system. This would just make sure that does stay.
Okay, and I would take that as a speech against.
That's why I had this.
Yep. All right, good. All right, do we have anybody for? There's a motion. All right. Question? Point of order in the back. Okay. Number 6.
I'm Laura Kidner-Meissen, Cottage Grove. I move the previous question on all that is before us. Is that point of order? Or am I supposed to use the question one?
It's okay, Laura. We get the point. Okay, is there a second? Second? On moving the previous question. This requires 2/3 vote. You're ending debate on, and she said all before us, so that this will end the debate on the amendment. All right, everybody understand? Okay, if you would close the debate, would you raise your hand? Okay, thank you. Any opposed? It's clearly 2/3. All right, so now we're on the amendment itself, and you will then be voting for or against the amendment. Laura, do you have it so that you could read it?
I do have the amendment. The amendment is for the addition after line 2 on page 6, after the statement that reads, if a legislative assembly member is unable to attend, an equitable and representative person may be chosen by the representative entity as a replacement. Add these words, no more than 1/2 of the membership of the Legislative Assembly shall be changed every 2 years in order to help promote stability.
Okay, everybody have that before you? All right. We move directly to the vote. If you would approve the amendment, please raise your hand. Okay, those opposed, same sign. All right, it clearly fails. We're back on to the main motion itself. So the action request. Any more debate? Looks like you're ready to. Yeah, okay, got it. All right, so let us go before, let's take the vote. I don't hear any call for prayer, so I think we're okay with this. So if you would approve this particular motion, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Same sign. All right, it's clearly carried, clearly passed.
Great, thank you, and I'm grateful for you all keeping a fair process. Thank you.
And thank Warren and Jeannie for their work on this process. Yeah, thank you.
So we have another edition of our words from the retirees.
Well, I've learned that the strong churches are those that have a strong, committed lay leadership. I believe a strong lay leadership is a group of laity who are interested in the ministry, who are able to encourage others to join in the ministry. And so there is efficiency in numbers.
Well, I've learned a lot in ministry, and I've been in ministry my whole life. As a youth and as a layperson professional in camp and retreat ministry and in music, guiding people to explore their spirituality. And so what I've learned is some ways to help people do that and to trust that people know their own journey and their own questions, and that they can find more questions along with their answers on that journey, and to encourage that.
Well, I've learned that the world is a wonderful and marvelous place with a huge variety of people in it, that United Methodists are a pretty small portion of the whole, but there's a niche, and I have, for the most part, been pretty happy about that. But I really enjoy going beyond the bounds of our church to meet and work with people of all stripes.
During my time at Sweet Home Church, we had the privilege of welcoming and working with a transgender person, and that deeply affected the whole congregation as we grew to accept and understand and learn everything, or some things there is to know about a person whose gender identity is in transition and changing, and to celebrate with that person name change and identifier changes on driver's licenses, and to really be there for a person who had struggled a long time with many issues, and that understanding oneself as the other, moving to another gender identity, resolved some issues for that person that they had been dealing with their whole life. And that was part of our task as a reconciling congregation, and it made it very, very real, and opened all our hearts and all our minds while we opened our doors.
I think the most rewarding was to serve as co-chair of the Bishop's Initiative to Eliminate Hunger under the tenure of Bishop Hoshibata. I believe that we were the first denomination in Oregon and southern Idaho to have an organized attack against hunger. I think that most, if not all of the churches participated in it in some way. They were educating their communities on hunger and hunger issues, starting soup kitchens and food pantries, and everybody got excited, and it was really, really great.
More recently, I've been at McLaren Youth Correctional Facility and part-time at Hillcrest as well, and that's another whole ballgame. I've enjoyed working in that setting a great deal. It's been a lot of fun and meaningful ministry with these young guys that are locked up. And it's a ministry of hospitality. I get to provide that hospitality for Christians, for Jews, for Muslims, for all kinds of folks, Protestants, Catholics, Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses. And I work with volunteers, and they too are part of the hospitality that I provide. And they enrich my life, all of them, the youth and the people from the community that come in. They're all unique, and they all have different perspectives on the world and on life and on faith. And I get to be a part of all of it, and that's one thing I really enjoy.
The most important value that I held for myself, and that I would call forth for another person entering ministry, is to have absolutely as much integrity as you can in speaking what you believe, in living your values, in being honest and true to yourself, being willing to confess your doubts, your fears, knowing that your congregation or the people you're working with, who might be community members of any kind, I'll have as much wisdom as you and probably more.
Looking back over the years that I've been in ministry, there's wonderful people in the church, wonderful people in the community, and it's a gift to be able to work with them, to reach out to those that are in need, and to provide blessing for people when we have that opportunity.
we have some announcements.
Thank you, Wendy. You know I can't talk unless you tell me I can talk.
Write that one down.
We'll talk later. Just a final reminder about our Walk of Remembrance this evening, gathering on the plaza outside at 8 p.m. Because of that newly scheduled event, there are a couple of adjustments. One is for the folks who are rehearsing for tomorrow morning's service of commissioning. That rehearsal's being bumped back until the end of that walk. We're estimating that will be about 9 p.m. So if you are a person involved in that rehearsal for tomorrow morning's worship service, you'll gather here in this space approximately 9 p.m., but at any rate, following the walk. There was also a gathering of the Order of Deacons, originally scheduled for about 8 p.m. this evening, and because of the walk, we have decided to cancel that order gathering so that our members can participate in the walk. So for deacons, that's canceled for this evening.
And we would like to ask our clergy to stay after our laity have left. We have one item for an adjourned clergy session. It shouldn't take long, but we do need to have our laity depart, and our clergy can come up to the front, and we will take care of that one issue. The wording is so, it's yeah, it really is. Welcome. I mean, yeah, exactly. Thanks, Paul. Of course, I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, really appreciate having you with us, Paul. No, thank you. It's a pleasure. All right. Okay, you take care. Yeah, thanks.